All right, guys, welcome to Math 1342 Statistics. Today we're going to be looking at section 1.1. So I'm in Blackboard. I'm clicking the Pearson New link, and I'm going to go ahead and go to My Lab Mastering. I'm going to see a lot more options than you guys as I'm the instructor, but you're going to spend most of your time here in assignments. So right now I have 3, and I'll be adding more as the semester goes on, but we're going to go ahead and look at section 1.1. So we had about 14 questions, and most of this is going to be vocabulary. So we got to learn a lot of vocabulary to get started. So I'm going to go to the textbook. Hope you do spend some time here in the textbook, and I'm going to kind of give you an overview of the terms that we want to be knowledgeable of. So you got some objectives here, section 1.1. We're going to define statistical thinking, explain the process of statistics, distinguish between qualitative and quantitative variables, discrete and continuous variables, and then the level of measurement. So what I want you guys to do as you get started is there's a lot of green boxes. Take time. I would write those down and just kind of become familiar with the definitions. So we got statistics. I'm going to go to the next page. They're explaining the process. So all of this is going to be some good reading. They got several different examples as well. So we have the description between an entire group called the population, and then we have individual person, or some of that population being studied is a sample, it's a subset. So statistics is a numerical summary, and then we have descriptive statistics, organizing and summarizing data. Inferential statistics uses methods that result from a sample, so we try to extend it to the population. We try to make some guess based on the sample. Parameter is a statistic that deals with the population. So you kind of get parameter versus statistic. Both of these are very similar, almost the same. Basically, you will gather some data, and let's say I took an average. Let's say I have a class of 30 kids. If I take 10 of those kids and find their average, I use the sample of that class. That average would be called a statistic because I use the sample. S for sample, S for statistic. If you use a sample, the number that you get is a statistic. However, if I was to take the whole class of 30, that would be the entire population, and then I found the average, that average would be considered a parameter because I used the whole population. So in both cases, I got a numerical average. It just depends on what I use to get that average. So that's basically the difference between statistic and parameter. So then we got the process of statistics. So you identify what we want to research. We're going to collect the data needed. We're going to describe the data using statistics or parameter, and then we're going to perform an inference, a guess. And then you have some examples. This is kind of going through what you want to do if this was the problem. Distinguish between qualitative and quantitative variables. So qualitative basically is a category. It's normally non-numerical data. However, it could be numbers, but those numbers you could not do any meaningful math with. So like if I wanted to do a study and find out, you know, the average hair color, okay, so I would just count, you know, different colors, either, you know, blonde or black or brown, red, you know, whatever the case may be, you would just count those, and whichever one was the most. You can do the same thing with eye color. If I wanted to identify somebody based on, let's say they play on a sports team, and I was looking at their jersey number, even though their jersey number is numerical, you can't really do any meaningful math with a jersey number. So let's say if somebody was jersey number 1 and somebody was jersey number 2, it wouldn't make any sense to add 1 plus 2 and get like the third best player on the team. Like, it doesn't mean anything. So Qualitative are going to be categorical, basically attributes and characteristics. If it's a number, you cannot perform any meaningful math with it. And then quantitative are going to be numerical measures that you can be added or subtracted, and you can do meaningful results, as it's saying here. So like with money, with age, with weight, all of those things we can perform meaningful math with. So then you got some examples here, which I'll go into detail with those in my math lab. So discrete and continuous, that was the last objective. Discrete, the way I describe it, is going to be a whole number. It says finite. So things that cannot be broken down into parts or wouldn't make sense. So if I said, how many cars do you have? You would count 1, 2, 3, or it'd be 0. So it's telling you right here, like 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on, like a whole number. How many brothers and sisters you have? I got 1, 2, 3. You wouldn't say I have 2.5 brothers and sisters. What does that mean? You know, you can't have a half. Well, we do say we have, you know, half brother, sister if we have different parents, but they're a whole person. So we would actually count them as a brother or sister. Same thing with cars. I got 1 or 2 or 3. I don't have 2.5 cars. Like you don't have, you know, half a car. So those will be whole numbers. Continuous would be numbers, I would say, that can be broken down, that have decimal points, fractions. Like money, you can have whole dollars, or you could have dollars and change. We can look at a person's weight or height. You could have, you know, a whole number of pounds, or it could be, you know, 100.6 pounds. You know, you can have a broken down portion. So continuous would contain decimals or portions that aren't whole. Same thing with height. I can be, you know, 4 foot something, 5 foot something, or I could be, you know, 5 foot even, 6 foot even. So those would be the difference. And there's a little diagram that's showing you if we're dealing with quantitative, things that are numerical, then they will be either continuous or discrete. And later on, we will find out qualitative variables will break down into interval or ratio. We'll talk about those a little bit later. You got some examples here to look at and some more breakdowns about the data. Some more examples here. These are going to be good readings. And then here's what, well, the interval and ordinal. That's not here yet. Nominal and ordinal. So these would be with qualitative variables. So if you know it's qualitative, which is a categorical variable, it's going to be nominal or ordinal. Nominal means no meaningful order. So it's just a label. Again, think about jersey numbers. Athletes pick their jersey numbers. Just because you're number 1 doesn't mean they're the best person on the team, number 2, second best, and so forth and so on. They're just a label. It doesn't make sense to put them in order. Then you have some which, let's say, a house street address. You have a house number. It doesn't make sense to add house numbers together. You don't get any meaningful math with it, but it does make sense to put them in order, because if you were driving down the street and you were trying to find a house number and they were just randomly placed, you wouldn't know where to go to find it. Normally they go in ascending order or descending, depending on which direction you're going. So nominal means no meaningful order, just a label. Ordinal means we can put it in order. You can also think of shirt sizes: small, medium, large, extra large. All of those are sizes, and we can put them in a meaningful order. So the interval ratio, those are also dealing with quantitative variables. Interval is going to mean the absence of something. I usually look at the absolute 0. So interval, let's say temperature, for example. If it was really cold and we said the temperature was 0 degrees outside, does that mean there's no temperature outside, or does that mean 0 is a temperature? Well, 0 degrees would mean that is the temperature. It does not mean we don't have a temperature. On the other hand, if I was talking about how many cars or some object that you have, and I said I have 0. Well, it seems like it could mean both. 0 means the absence of cars, and 0 is the number of cars I have. So both of those fit. If it seems like both fit, then ratio would be the level of measurement that you want to consider. So after that, you got one more set of examples, and then we can practice the problems in my math lab.